How are you, Carlo?
Not too bad.
Good.
Excited to be here.
I always ask everyone else how's it going, everyone? I'm like, no one ever asks Carlo how Carlo's doing.
It's true.
So.
Appreciate that.
How's it going, everyone? This is an exciting video for us. We're doing our top 50 board games of all time. We've been really excited to finally do this video. It is something we're going to try to do every year, but this is the first time we're doing it. So if you've been wondering what our favorite games of all time are, this is your first crack at finding out what those are. Carlo, how did you approach this list?
So we did I did the Pub Meeple ranking engine. For anyone curious, go to pubmeeple.com and check it out. It's pretty cool. You just input any number of games. I think I put 70 games into there, and then it just asks you which game do you like more, this or this. It asks you like a couple hundred questions or whatever, and then it sorts it. But then I did some manual adjustments because Pub Meeple didn't know what they were talking about for some of them. I was like, how's this game so low or high or whatever? Right. But that's mostly it. And factored in both how good a game is, but also some games rank higher even though they might not be as good just based on like the nostalgia factor if they've been like a big part of me as a gamer over the years, right, kind of thing. So it's kind of, honestly, I don't know about you, but I really struggled putting together this list. It was tough. Like it took me a while, and there was a lot of picks I sat there looking at being like, can I possibly put this higher or lower? Like, yeah,
I definitely struggled with it a little bit, but I just kind of forced myself to not think too, like I did Pub Meeple as well, and I just on the picks I just would try to be as quick as I could with it and not get too hung up on it, and then look at the results and adjust after that. And
sure,
there was definitely some really tough ones, but I think I was expecting it to be a little bit more difficult than it was. Maybe I just had expectations where I was never going to be able to make this list or something.
Right.
We should clarify that this video is 50 to 41. This is going to be 5 videos. We are going to release them every 2 days. So starting now, every 2 days through the holidays, you will get the next video all the way until our final 10 to 1 video. So make sure you keep checking back to the channel, or even better yet, subscribe so that you can get a notification every time we post one. Yeah. Before we jump into this, I know you probably have a couple other things we want to touch on here, but I do want to mention that this obviously is it's been a big year for us, but also for our channel, I should say, but it's also been a really challenging year for us in many ways. It's been a challenging year for everyone, but we're trying our best to look at the positives because of how much stuff's been going on in the world, and but how exciting it's been for us to be able to join this community and meet, digitally meet so many people and get ingrained in and stuff like that. I just wanted to point out that, this is sort of our way of capping off the year. This is a really exciting video that we get to do, the cap off, a 2021 that's been full of all kinds of videos. We are going to do a video in January that is more aligned with our 2-year anniversary, and we have some big announcements that are going to be coming in there, some changes you're going to be seeing, so look over that. But I did want to say that I did get you a little special something, just as sort of like a, I think this is really representative of our relationship as cousins and on our channel. So as a little celebration thing, I thought this was really indicative of our relationship. So this is a marshmallow on a stick candy, and for some reason it just reminded me of you. So I got you marshmallows on a stick.
I'm so confused.
I saw it and I thought, who would love this? Carlo would love this, mostly because this guy's expression down here is just, I don't know. Yeah, I just thought it was great.
Okay.
You tell me you don't.
Thank you.
Got a problem with marshmallows on a stick?
No, I've never eaten something like this before.
There's always a good time to start. So there you go, marshmallow gummies on a stick.
Wow, very caught off guard. I'll try this at some point and see how it is.
Good, yeah. Maybe we'll have a review on our channel. You can review the marshmallow gummies on a stick.
Am I missing something?
No, what you're missing is marshmallows in your life, obviously, because you've never tried this before. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. I saw it when I was getting batteries. I saw it and I thought this is perfect. So
okay.
I gave it a little purchase. Is there anything else you want to say before we jump into this list?
Well, I think we were gonna do a quick guess of how many games were on. So I asked Dylan to look over his list and take a guess how many games he thinks we're going to have as overlap total over the 50. I went over mine. I think we're going to have, my guess is 21 overlap picks. And I think in the top 10, I only expect 1 overlap pick. And we'll revisit all this when we do the final video.
Okay. I'm going to say 18 overlap. And in the top 10, I'm going to say 2 overlap. And let's do one. How many do you think we're going to have that are at the exact same number and the exact same game?
Ooh.
I'm going to say 1. Because I think that's a pretty tough.
Yeah, that is pretty tough. I'll say 2 just to be different. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll go over this at the end and we'll see who is more close to being right on those.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing just to touch on real quick about the pandemic is that's going to have a big effect on a lot of the games on this list because there was a big chunk where we were just playing games on Board Game Arena, and wow, like Board Game Arena was such a huge asset to us over the pandemic, over this last year, to be able to play games online. So some of these games are up there because we played them like just so much online. But
yeah, for sure.
I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, should I kick things off?
Kick it off.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, and again, one last really quick thing is for these earlier videos, we're probably not going to spend as much time talking about each game, whereas when we get to like the top 20, we'll spend a little bit more time talking about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So my number 50 game, just squeaking onto the list, is Gizmos. So Gizmos, I have on my shelf over here. I really like Gizmos. I played your copy first, then got my own copy because of how much I liked it. It's a game that if anyone recommends it, I'll come back to, and I've used it a few different times to introduce to people that don't play board games as often or don't play engine builders quite as often, because I feel like with the colorful orbs, circles, marbles, whatever you want to call them. My dog is playing with the plastic bag that I got to put the plastic bag up here now. It's just like it's a really easy one to introduce people to an engine builder because of how colorful and because of what the table presence is like. It just has that inviting feel to it, and I just really love playing it. So it just squeaks onto the list, and I will say that the game that it just squeaked over, just in case you're curious, was Splendor, which I also really love.
Oh, nice.
It just squeaked over that. That is my number 50.
Nice pick. Doesn't quite make my list at all, but it is a really good game, and one that's really rewarding for new gamers because there's a lot of fun stuff, pulling the marbles and whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, nice pick. My number 50, I think this is going to be very controversial.
Oh
boy.
I'm
expecting you to be like actually
I don't even maybe I should just cover my ears to this one if I think it.
My number 50 pick, which when I did the Pub Meeple rankings, it didn't even crack the top 50. I had to manually adjust and put this at number 50 because it just had to be in here somewhere, and that is Gloomhaven.
Oh, that is also surprising, but I thought it was going to be Feast for Odin.
Oh, okay. No. That one will be a little higher up.
Wow.
Yeah,
just
I know.
Squeaking on.
So here's the thing: is Gloomhaven, and I almost put Jaws of the Lion instead, but Gloomhaven, like the reason why it's on this is because of the experience of being in this campaign with you and Corbin and Brad. Yeah. We played Gloomhaven over the course of like 2 years off and on. The pandemic set us back for a while. We played the entire campaign. We played Forgotten Circles all the way through as well.
Yeah.
For me, like, if we had stopped playing Gloomhaven around somewhere in the, like, maybe 40 to 60% of the way into the campaign, it would have probably been a lot higher on my list. But I think, for me, it was almost maybe a little too much, and there were also times where I wish I could have moved on from the class I was playing a little bit sooner,
right.
Or maybe some of the scenarios after a while felt a little too samey with like destroy all monsters. So there was a point where like my peak enjoyment of the game was like I was loving it, and like what I loved so much was the possibilities of like what's out there, what other classes are we going to see, and once we had unlocked everything and we're just playing through the remaining scenarios, my enjoyment of it went down a little bit.
Yeah.
So overall, when I was doing the Pub Meeple ranking, I just found that I kept picking a different game. Oh, I like this more than Gloomhaven. I like this. It came in at like number 53, and I thought it has to be on the list just for like the memories I have from playing it and how much the highs were real high, but the lows were lower than I'd like for a game that we played for so long. But I was expecting you to be like angry.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to show that on camera. Like, as soon as the cameras go off, the next video on the channel is going to be why me and Carlo aren't speaking anymore.
And I'm no longer welcome for Frosthaven. I go on for a while, but I'll just leave it at that for now. That's number 50 for me, Gloomhaven.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a shock to me. But I would have been angrier if it was Feast for Odin, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so coming in at number 49 is actually a really new game for me, and one that we played recently, and that is Oath: Chronicles of Empire and Exile. So this game is one that, you know, I will fully admit it could fall off the list already by next year. It could move up the list depending on the next games I play. But the experience I had with it was so unique and so memorable, even from the few sessions that we did, that for that experience alone, much in the same way that part of the experience is what brought Gloomhaven to the list for you, is why I'm including this at 49. Is just the idea that you're writing in this journal everything that's happening in the game and having all those memories put in there in you know, a very thematic way, depending on how you want to write it in, and it's very much tied to your game because the players that you played with, it's their way of approaching the strategies, it's their way of reacting to other people and the alliances they form. That is the best part of the game. It's almost I like the gameplay, I like the area control, I like all the cards that come up and how you're interacting with them. But for me, it's just the storylines and the narratives that you create that make it such a memorable game, and that's the main reason why it fell onto this list, is that I love that in board games, and this one found a way to do it in a non-legacy way, and usually that's what usually it has to be a legacy game to give that sort of satisfaction to me, and this was able to do it in an experience where I can now bring other people into it, and yes, I'll have to introduce them, and it'll feel a little different, but I don't have to be like, oh, you can't play because you're not part of this campaign, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a memorable game. It's funny because we played it before we played, or at least I did. Have you played Root?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so we played it before we played Root, which is usually most people's introduction to leader games. But I'm really, it made me more excited to go back and revisit the ones we haven't played, and also any other ones that come up in the future. But yeah, very memorable experience. I'm really interested, even for my own purposes, to see where this slots in, in the years to come, and how I look at this game a year or 2 years from now compared to now when it's so fresh in my mind.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good pick. Didn't make my list. If you want to know more of our thoughts, we have a review of the game on the channel, so I won't get into what I thought about it. But yeah, anyways, good pick.
Cool.
All right, my number 49 is Twice as Clever. So this is the only roll and write game on my list. Spoiler alert in advance. And it's so far it's my favorite roll and write game. I'll say right now,
the only roll and write game on your entire list. Wow.
There was, I'll say right now, Welcome 2 was like around 55 or 60. It just, over the last few times, it kind of lost a bit of its appeal to me. I still enjoy playing it, but Twice as Clever had to be on here because I've played it over 100 times on the app, just the solo app, because the games take like 5 minutes. I talked about this in another video recently, so you can go back to see a little more about it. It's just got that really addictive kind of combo, beat your high score kind of feel to it. I enjoy it most solo or maybe with two. And it just has this feeling of like you just want to come back and beat your high score. It's really, really addictive. I think next year there's a good chance. I'll say right now, Hadrian's Wall has a really good chance of being on my list next year as my new favorite roll and write, but I've only played it once, so it was too new to put on the list. But yeah, and I haven't tried Clever Cubed yet, the third one, but I do like Twice as Clever more than That's Pretty Clever or Ganz Schön Clever or whatever it's called. So yeah, that's my 49 pick.
So would you say that, I guess that would mean that Twice as Clever right now, as it stands, is your favorite roll and write that is out, that you've played?
As of now, yes. As of now, for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. That's really funny that yours, that was 49, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my 48 is That's Pretty Clever.
Oh, nice, okay.
And I would almost agree with you that over time, I'm sure I'd end up gravitating towards that Twice as Clever more. I just happen to have played That's Pretty Clever way more than I played Twice as Clever, because that's the one I first introduced to people. That's the one I had on the app first. So most of my nostalgia, my experience is from that one, even if I found certain elements of Twice as Clever to be more interesting.
For sure. And see, I don't have the app for That's Pretty Clever, and that's a big reason for me liking the other one more. But
so I think that's why it slots in there, but many of my reasons are the same. This is a game that I'm trying to think if it is my favorite roll and write, if there's one that's higher up now. I think there is. But it's one that I just constantly bring out to introduce to people. I constantly have a lot of fun with it. There's been times where I just play solo, even with the physical version, because I just have an itch to play it and I want to see if I can beat my high score. The app version is such a great way to experience it, because you can keep chasing your high scores without doing any setup, and you can quickly go through them. The comboing, the way it feels when you get this perfect chain of like, this is going to chain me into a yellow X, which is going to chain me into a blue X, which is going to chain me, like, it's always so satisfying, especially when you have those games. I don't know about you, but I have those games where I feel like I'm really behind or not doing well. I'm like, I haven't got any foxes yet, all this stuff, and all of a sudden you get a combo that just puts you like right where you should be or beyond where you should be, and you're like, I'm back in it now.
It's a little like endorphin rush. It's like, it reminds me of I don't remember if it's from Family Guy or something, like, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy. It's like everything is just like, you just keep getting happy every time something chains into something. It's just such a like feel good game to play. Yeah, so that's my number 48. That's Pretty Clever. Cool. All right, my number 48 is Azul.
Oh, wow.
I know, I
thought this was going to be higher.
I know, honestly, before I started doing my rankings, I would have guessed that it would have been in my like around maybe 30, 35. And then I just started realizing how many other games that I currently have ahead of it. So Azul was a pretty like instrumental, I think, especially when we started this channel in January 2020. Around that time, it was like a game we were playing a lot and we were like in love with.
Yeah.
And then I think what happened was I played it quite a bit. I think maybe I overplayed it at a certain point, and then I stopped playing for a while. And then since I came back to it, a bit of the initial like excitement is gone. Right. I think it's an amazing game. I think it's really good for new gamers, for people who like don't play a lot of games. I think it's like awesome for the hobby. You're gonna bring a lot of people in. But when I've gone back to it, I just like, I still enjoy it quite a bit, but I'm not sitting there being like, oh, what an amazing game. Like, there's just something about it where the excitement has wore off just a little bit, enough that I just picked up Azul Summer Pavilion just to see like, maybe I'll like that one more, or maybe if I play that and then go back to the original Azul, I'll appreciate it. I don't know if it's one that's going to leave my collection anytime soon because it's just a great game to kind of have there.
Yeah.
But I find over the last like year, it's never a game that I'm going to be the one to pick to play anymore. If someone else says, let's play Azul, I'd be up to play it anytime.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. I still really like it. I think it's great, but just, a bit of the novelty has wore off a bit for me.
Yeah, I feel the same way, except the novelty is still there for me, and I still do choose to play it. And I actually just last week introduced it to someone for the first time, and it was my idea to introduce it to them, and,
Right.
it reminded me how much I love it.
Yeah.
So I know we both love it, but I think a lot of that comes down to how much you played it recently, what other games you have that are similar to it, what you're introducing to players. That's why these lists are so fluid, is that
Exactly.
what did you play this year that reminded you of your love or made you realize you don't have a place on your shelf for this game?
Right.
Blah blah.
Yeah,
blah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So who knows? It might still be on the top 50 when we do it next year. It might
Yeah.
fall off the list. Hard to say right now, but that's my number 48, Azul.
Nice. All right, my number 47 is Sushi Go Party.
Nice.
I mean, you can consider the Sushi Go as well, but I've only owned the Sushi Go Party version. I think it's a superior version because it gives you more options. So this is just a really simple game that you can play it online on Board Game Arena, but it's basically just a...
Is Party on there?
Or
Just
no,
the
I guess
original
yeah,
Sushi
you're
Go.
right. It's the original version that's on there. Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
a great game.
And the party version basically just adds different sushi and items that you can swap out that have different abilities. So after you get tired with the original ones, you can keep the game fresh and try new things. But yeah, it's a very simple game where you're just drawing, or you have a hand of cards. You're picking a card from your hand, passing it to the next player, and drafting that way until you've drafted every single card. And that's essentially the entire gameplay. Like, you're just drafting cards. So everything in the game comes down to the abilities in the cards. And I found that is just super easy to introduce to people. And I would have thought that over time, I would have been like, yeah, I'll introduce this to someone, but I'm not having fun with it. And even though I don't suggest it as often, unless it's like a group of like 6
Yeah.
or whatever, every single time I play it, I think, wow, I forgot how much fun I have playing Sushi Go.
Yeah, even when we did on Board Game Arena a couple times during the
Yeah.
pandemic, it caught me off guard too how much I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's an addictive little game. It's one that, again, I don't know that I'll ever get rid of unless something else comes along that fills that niche in my collection. Because again, with the party version, you can play, I think it's up to 6 or 7 compared to the original.
Yeah, that's a huge bonus, honestly. That's
And when I have 6 or 7 people come over, I sometimes, especially if there's a mix of non-gamers and gamers, like Ethnos plays up to 6, but am I going to bring that out if there's someone who's never played board games? No.
Right.
Sushi Go Party is one that the artwork is attractive to
I was
people.
gonna say, they have super cute artwork.
It's
with
not
the-
imposing to when you say, hey, we're going to play this game or whatever, and it's just so easy to explain to someone, even if they are someone that don't listen to rules. Just like, here's your hand, you got to keep a card and pass it to your left. And some people are like, that's all they want to know, and they want to just play and see how it goes. Other people are like, okay, tell me about the abilities, but it's easy to just say that and have them feel like they're participating now. So, and then they get the hang of it from usually one round. So yeah, it's a game that's I've always come back to. I've always enjoyed it, so I knew it needed a place in this list, and it found its way in at what is that, 47.
Nice. That's your second Phil Walker Harding game on here, along with
Wow,
Gizmos
already-
Yeah,
already in
Phil
the
Walker
fir- yeah.
Harding. How many more?
I know. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay, my number 47 is a game we've talked about on the channel before. It is Ink and Gold, also known, I think it's classified on Board Game Geek under Diamant, which is I think what it was first published as. Basic idea, it's a push your luck game where you're playing over 5 rounds, simultaneous play with your players, and every turn you're just deciding, are you going to stay in the temple and try and push your luck and have a chance at collecting more gems or treasures, or are you going to leave before you get sort of trapped in there or crushed by these hazards or whatnot. Person with the most gems at the end wins. Super simple. Everyone I've shown this game to has sometimes it's taken some convincing. People look at the box art and think it sounds kind of dry, whatever. And then every time I show it to people, they love it and they want to play it again. And this is one that we only discovered through Board Game Arena during the pandemic, played it a whole bunch, and then I went and bought a physical copy. It's one of my favorite push your luck games. It's so fun. And here's the thing, one of the things I love so much is I don't win often at the game. I often end up with either 0 points or 3 points because I push my luck way too much. I get really greedy, and sometimes I like to play the odds a lot. So I'm like, well, there's only a 2 in 18 chance that I'm gonna actually crash out here or whatever, and then it happens and I'm just like whatever, and then I stubbornly push my luck more and more once I'm behind. So the very few times I do win this game, I stay in the round and get so many gems that people get mad and I win by a lot, but it happens so rarely, so it's like the highs are real high and then the lows are low because people just laugh at me when I get 0 points and they're like, nobody else scores 0 when we play that. How do you get 0 points?
But now you're just used to the 0 point hate at this point. You're just like, it rolls off me. So.
For sure. And another thing I love about it is if you play with the same people, you get to know people's tendencies. So I know that like you play it safer than I do. So then there's the mind games of like, Dylan's probably gonna go out this round, so I'll stay in because I can get more gems. And we're always talking about Carlo's pushing his luck, whatever. It's I don't know. Anyways, it's a really really fun game and plays like 3 to 8 players. Awesome game, ink and gold.
Yeah, great pick. It's I actually don't know off the top of my head now if it's on my list now. I'm trying to think. It was definitely on the ones I included. I don't know if it cracked the 50, but it's one that I played so much that like love it. Such a good game. Yeah. All right, my number 46 is Jaipur. So this is a game that I've had for a long time. This is one of the first games I actually got. It's a 2-player only game. It's pretty simple. You're basically you have 5 cards in front of you, and there's going to be a mix of different types of goods of different colors. I think it's like 5 different colors, and then there's camels, and you're basically just trying to, it's like a set collection. You're trying to gather a certain amount of each color to be able to cash them in to get these tokens that are worth points. It's super simple, but it's this hand management thing that makes it super interesting, where you're like, I want all the stuff I have in my hand, but I also want that. I can't have it all, but if I trade in, I don't get to pick up, and they might take what I want. So you're having to balance what is like the best thing to do, and what are you willing to give up, what are you willing to give your opponent. The camels added this really interesting thing where you can basically get a whole bunch at once, but you have to add camels there, and then the camels also give you bonus points at the end. Like, there's so much going on for such a little game to think about that every time I play, I'm reminded how much strategy there actually is in Jaipur. And even though the theme I would say is not always the one that is like, it's not in the same vein as like Sushi Go, where I bring it out and everyone's like, oh, that looks so cute or whatever. Like, I tell someone about Jaipur and they're like, oh, interesting. Like, it doesn't catch their eye.
And spices and whatever.
It's not going to catch them right away. But usually when they play it, they're like, wow, that is a fun game. It's one that surprises them. So it's one that it will likely have my collection for a long time, because I still bring it out in 2-player environments when I just want to introduce someone to a quick game, or I only have time for a quick game.
Yeah, it's a nice pick. Yeah. Honestly, it didn't quite crack my top 50, but it's another one that I came back to a couple times with my wife and also on Board Game Arena during the pandemic. And again, it surprised me how much I enjoyed it, because for a long time it sat on my shelf and just like, I don't know if I'll go back to it for a while. And then, surprised me. Good game.
That was Jaipur.
All right, my number 46 pick is Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So this one was very close to not making the list at first, and then I had to manually push it up a few spots because I haven't played it as much in the last year or two, but it's the main reason I ended up actually culling Seven Wonders from my collection as a drafting game. I really like the interaction. If anyone here has played Between Two Cities, this is basically the version that combines Between Two Cities and Castles of Mad King Ludwig. And instead of in Between Two Cities where you have, let's say, a top-down view, this one is like a side view, so you have the different floors, you can have basement rooms or whatever. And, it's a game that sometimes you feel like the randomness gets you, or you are looking for certain types of rooms and they don't come up or whatever, but like, you don't play it thinking like, oh, I lost because of the luck and I didn't have fun or whatever. It's just like a really fun game. The artwork is beautiful. The production quality is really nice. And this idea of working with your two teammates and like, or they're kind of competitors, right? They're not actually teammates, but you're building these.
Both.
Yeah, you're building these two cities, and it's whichever one has the fewest points. Well, let's say one of them has 40 and the other one has 50 points. My final score at the end of the game is 40. So it's a game of how well can you sort of divide equal priorities and pay attention. And sometimes you have one teammate being like, "What are you doing putting that tile in their castle? We need it in ours." I'm like, "Sorry, I'd like to put it in ours, but I just kind of need it over here." And then people start spiting you and building more with their other teammates.
It's these loose alliances of like you're my teammate, but at the same time you'll forsake me if you're going to get your points over there.
Exactly. And a lot of other drafting games like Seven Wonders, like even Sushi Go, a lot of these games you're just like kind of sitting in silence, passing cards, and I really like, even though you have a bit less control over what you're getting because you're building with another person, I really like that aspect of the interaction. It's just a really fun game, and one that a lot of people in my gaming group really enjoy and ask to play over and over. So, Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Nice. Awesome pick. My number 45 is a game I can confidently say is not going to be on your list, I don't think, and that is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Because I don't think you're the biggest fan of these hidden role games as much anyways these days.
Yeah, at least these days, yeah.
So this is a game I put on here a lot because of the experiences I've had with it. I haven't played in a long time. Obviously, the pandemic made that difficult, and I almost considered not putting it on because of that. But I do remember how many times I have played this game and how much fun I've had with it. I love the randomness and chaoticness of like some of the rolls, like the one that just flips tiles. It can mean that like it just completely throws everyone for a loop because you think you're something that you're not, but it just causes so much hilarity around the table. I think that honestly the amount of laughing and arguing and everything that comes with it is why I love it so much. You have to have the right group for a game like this. Some people don't like being called out, for being something that they're not or whatever, or just like don't like the having to speak in front of a large amount of people and like defend their points and things like that. And I've definitely played it. A friend of ours hosts like hidden role games very often, and I've definitely played it before. And with people I haven't played a lot of games with, have been like, I would say something like this normally, but I'm not going to in this environment and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
So it depends on the group you're playing it with, but I've just had such a great time with it. It's a social game. It's one that you can all be having some drinks and just like all you have to really do is look at your role and decide how you want to defend it or how you want to try to win. Because it's one night, it's easy where it's not someone's getting eliminated and then has to just watch people play for a while.
For sure.
So it's a game that I will definitely be coming back to as soon as I start having more gatherings again and introducing these kind of games to the session again. And I had to include it on the list. It's one I could see going off the list eventually over time, but for now it still cracks in there at 45.
Nice. Honestly, it's one that I might eventually one day regret culling. Just at a different point in my life, I might want to revisit. And I love, like you said, the short rounds and also the switching roles. How when you wake up, you don't know if your role has been changed or not, so you don't know what to say. Yeah. It's a really, really fun game. One I might actually regret getting rid of. But yeah, nice pick.
Thanks.
All right, number 45 on my list is Pandemic Iberia. So
I still haven't played this.
Okay, we'll have to play it someday because it's funny. Pandemic Iberia, I've actually only played once or twice. Whereas regular Pandemic, I've probably played like 20 or 30 times.
Yeah.
But so Pandemic has been way more like influential on me as a gamer. I've played it a whole lot with my wife over the years. But I do like ever since I tried Pandemic Iberia, I've been kind of trying to convince my wife for us to get rid of original Pandemic, and she's very sentimental about the original one, so it stays there. But Pandemic Iberia, in my opinion, is so much better. It's so much more thematic. It's so immersive. It's set in like the 1800s, obviously in Iberia, so Portugal and Spain. For those who don't know, we are part Portuguese, so it's a big kind of factor for me. And it's just the kind of era that it puts you in, and how you can't fly, right? So everything is like either carriage, railway, or by boat. So you can sail around, and the roles are very interesting. Like there's a sailor, an agronomist, a politician, and you can't actually like eradicate diseases because that just like wasn't feasible at the time. So you're trying to cure enough of diseases or whatever, or find the cures, and set up like water purification stations. And there's like variants that I think everyone should try once you've played the game once or twice, where you can get like I think you set up hospitals that people can like flock to. So you build hospitals, and then every round people automatically go towards them. And then the diseases can be thematic, like there can be like malaria and typhus and whatever, like stuff like that. So it's just really, really immersive, and plus it goes up to 5 players, whereas the original game only goes up to 4. It's also one of the nicest looking games in my collection. The artwork is like just stunning on all the cards, the boards, everything. It's a game that I definitely want to play more, and we definitely have to try it sometime.
Okay, my number 44 pick is another newer game, and that is Lost Ruins of Arnak. This is one I can confidently say is not on your list either, even though I know you like it, but it's not like you don't like it nearly as much as I do.
Yeah, I don't love it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, so this is one I've only played a handful of times. I've played it a couple times on Board Game Arena as well. I really do like it, and the reason it's on here is because I think it's going to eventually go higher the more I play it. I just haven't had as much opportunity to play because of the pandemic. But I love deck builders. I love worker placements. Those are two of my favorite genres. The fact that this combines both into one and does so in successfully, I think, is what I just knew I was going to love this game from the second it was announced. I was actually late to the party on getting this from when I first saw it and knew I wanted it. I like so many of the elements of the way that they incorporated at these monsters that go onto the tiles, and the fact that you basically have an open slate that you can now go to, and you get to add certain tiles onto it from like the different piles at different like worker placement spaces. So every game you're going to have different worker placement spaces to go to, aside from the basic ones that are always there. The track on the side that you're moving up is really interesting to navigate, and the fact that you're moving 2 pieces on it, but one piece can't go higher than the other piece. You have to constantly have a balance between them if you want to try to move them both. There's a lot of things it does that I just like have a lot of fun tinkering with, on top of the fact that I'm also building my deck as I go, just something I always just love doing in games.
Yeah.
The theme is obviously something that is not super unique, but I've just always loved it. It has that like same kind of themes like Quest for El Dorado and stuff like that. Like it's that exploration in the jungle, Indiana Jones type theme.
Yeah, exactly.
It checks all the right boxes for me. It only barely squeaked on in this first video because I haven't played it enough to probably rank this higher. But who knows, by the time I played a bunch more, maybe another game will come along that does both these things better and it'll bump it ahead. It's not one that I think has a guaranteed spot in my top 50. I just think that it's one of the ones that does deck building and worker placement combined so well that I just had to include it.
For sure, nice.
Yeah.
And honestly, this has to be one of the most impressive debut designs. I think it's a husband and wife team, Min and Elwin.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways. I'll definitely play it many more times. I enjoy it for sure. Yeah. Just not on my top 50.
For sure.
All right, my number 44 is an excellent little filler game called Point Salad.
Nice.
So this is a game that has continued to impress me the more I play it, and has continued to reveal... I want to be careful, like, when I use this word, like, saying that it has revealed more depth over time. It's not like there's crazy different amount of strategies to pursue or anything, but it's the fact that every game, especially depending on the player count, because these cards are double-sided, basically all you're doing is drafting cards off the table, but everything stays in front of you where players can see, and you're kind of just collecting different veggies to meet scoring condition cards. What's interesting to me is you can play the game in a lot of different ways in terms of, like, you can start taking a bunch of veggies early and then kind of collect scoring cards later to meet what you're doing, or you can take scoring cards early and then kind of try to be, chase after those veggies that meet those scoring conditions. How many scoring cards are you going to take? I've seen people win with only taking, 4 or 5 scoring cards maybe, but just really doing well with the veggies they collect. I've seen people take way more scoring cards, and some of them maybe don't score you as much. Yeah. You don't take as many veggies. And the fact that every turn you can flip one of your scoring cards over to the veggie that's on the other side also creates an interesting thing where you can be riskier with the scoring cards early, because if suddenly you have to shift gears based on drafting what's out there, and the fact is, like, when you play with 2 or 3 players, you only use a smaller portion of the deck, but you can just play in like 2 or 3 rounds instead, add up the scores, whatever. Plays 2 to 6 players. It's one of the best like filler games I've played, and is so good for people who are new to the hobby or don't play games very often, because there's no like secret like asking like, what does this card do? Oh, well, we don't want to see what's in your hand. Like, everything's in front of you. Yeah. It's such a like accessible, approachable game for anyone. And yeah, it's just one that I love playing every time, and it continues to surprise me.
The thing you said about everyone's strategy being different but still effective is easily my favorite part about this game, because I just played this a few weeks ago at Across the Board, which is a game cafe here in Winnipeg, and it's funny because it had been a while since I played it, and I went in and I got a whole bunch of scoring conditions cards that were all working for me and all going to get me a bunch of points. And the person I was playing with was playing for the first time, and I had introduced it to them, and they only had like 4 scoring cards or 5 scoring cards. And I remember a couple times saying to them, hey, you also do want to get some more scoring cards and stuff like that. And they beat me by like a hefty amount. And like, I remember looking back being like, man, like here I am. I'm this jerk being like, hey, you might want to change your strategy here. And they beat me, and like, it's just like the fact that you can approach the game that way and be like, well, I don't need more scoring cards. I'm just going to get a whole bunch more tomatoes to get more of my score up. Like, I love that, and I love that you never really know like quite how far someone is ahead or whatever until the end, because there's so many calculations. It's hard to be like, I'm going to keep track of that person's score and stuff that, right? It's very fun to see the scoring happen. Yeah,
and a bit of the hate drafting, you see someone's scoring card on there, and then you take a veggie in that row just so that the scoring card flips over into a vegetable, and they're like, oh, someone wanted that.
All the time.
Yeah, really, really fun game. It's my number, what was that? 44, Point Salad.
Yeah. All right, 43 for me is one that I think might be a lot higher up for you, is my guess, because I'm pretty sure this is your number 1 game of 2020, and that is Babylonia.
Oh, yes.
So
criminally low.
Yeah, criminally low.
We'll talk more about it later. Yeah.
This is mostly as low as it is because I've only played it a handful of times, and there's some other tile placement games like this that I enjoy a lot more. But Babylonia is a great game. It has a lot of similarities to other games I've played. It has similarities even to Blue Lagoon, which is another game that Knizia has done. But it's it's so strategic, and every time I play, it's one of those. I find that there was those moments in games, especially when we play them together, when we're really getting into some strategic plays that I just look over and we just each have like these smiles on our face, like we're looking at each other, being like, I know what you're doing, you know what I mean? And those are the ones I can tell I'm having a really great time, because it's funny how much like we're doing to screw each other over and to also find ways to get more points. And Babylonia just does that a lot when you're trying to like where you're going to place your little circle tiles, or when you're trying to make like a long connection, someone comes in and blocks you, and you want like certain icons to be in certain places, or you have to have the majority around, what is it, the castles or the ziggurats.
The ziggurats, so get you the abilities.
It's such a, and the board is huge and it looks great when it's on the table. I would never say no to a game of Babylonia, and I absolutely want to play a bunch more, especially with higher player counts. That's something I really want to experience with Babylonia, especially like 3 I think is going to be a really good amount, but it's just one I haven't played enough to put higher on this list. But I could see if I played this, if I had played this another dozen times, I think some of the longevity and the, just how good it is would have come out a little bit more, and I would have been more, wouldn't have been as reluctant to put this, higher up in the 20s or whatever the case would be. So keep an eye out for this one, especially on next year's list. I think it could shift around if I played it some more, but for now it slots in at 43 for me.
Cool. I'll have a lot more to say about it in another video. Number 43 on my list is Cat Lady. So following up after Point Salad, it's another excellent filler game that if you had asked me, if we had done this top 50 like a year or two ago, it probably would have ranked much higher for me.
That's what I was surprised by.
I think I played it again a few times, and it's still a really good game. I've played it probably more than 30 times now. And there was a point where I introduced it to new people, and then they wanted to always play it, and we would get together, people were like, let's play Cat Lady. So I think I just played it out a little bit for a while, but it is an awesome drafting game. I love the kind of 3x3 grid where you're drafting cards, and you have to take some you do like versus some you don't like, and kind of like what we were talking about at Point Salad, you can win in a whole, like, very different number of ways, right? Like, we've seen people win with having, like, 9 or 10 cats, like in true Cat Lady fashion, just going all out. And then we've seen other people win with, like, having 3 or 4 cats and then just spoiling those cats with a bunch of toys and catnip and whatever else, right? So, like, it's a game that I find I always enjoy. Similar to some we've talked about here, I'll never turn down a game of it. But these days, there's just certain filler games that I go to ahead of Cat Lady. I want to try the expansion Box of Treats a little bit more. I've only tried it once so far, and it adds in a couple other cards that kind of spice things up a little bit, and I think add a bit to the replay value. But yeah, that's Cat Lady. And all the artwork is really charming too, and is done by Josh Wood, who also designed the game. And this is another debut game that... actually, this was the first video we ever did on our channel, or at least the first game we reviewed and did how to play for, was Cat Lady. So it's also kind of sentimental to me for that reason. And I love cats.
So how much do you... I'm just out of curiosity, how much do you think the theme plays into this enjoying as much as you have? Like, if this game had been called Birdfellow, like
Birdfellow.
If this game was a completely different theme, do you think you would have come back to it as much? And like, even though the gameplay is the exact same, like, how much do you think the theme is
probably not? And that's the thing, because AEG has announced Dog Lover, which is kind of like a follow-up, and I'm not going to go like out of my way to buy or play Dog Lover because I love Cat Lady so much. So as a cat lover, it definitely plays into it. I don't know if it would have cracked the top 50 if it didn't have cats.
AEG, if you're watching this video, I think the third one in the trilogy should be Birdfellow. And, I won't ask for any royalties either. I'll just be happy this game exists. So keep it in mind.
The world doesn't need a game called Birdfellow. Cat Lady is an excellent filler game. Go try it out if you haven't yet.
All right. My number 42 is a game called Photosynthesis. And so this game... I almost surprised myself a little bit by putting this on this list, because it has been a while since I played it, but for each of the games that I was sort of on the fence about, I took the box out, I looked at the components again, I reminded myself last times I played it and whatnot, and I remembered how much I've loved Photosynthesis. It scratches the same itch that I remember, like, when you were talking in your... the video you did about the games you played the most, about chess and like and Santorini, those kind of games. Like, it's not the same, it's not exactly that kind of play style, but the way you having to position your trees, and the coolest part is that the sun moves around the board, and you have to think the way the sun's shining, which trees are going to block which trees to limit points. Every time I think back to all the times I played, I've been like, man, that's actually such a cool mechanic. It looks so great on the table. It's so fun to try to solve that puzzle of where am I going to place my trees to try to get the sun to hit them as many times as possible before it does its full cycle.
Right.
It's a game I love playing, and every single time I pull it out, put it on the table, someone, especially if they've seen it for the first time, comment on it, like how it looks.
For sure.
The presence. Everyone loves having all their trees and adding them to the board.
Yeah.
It is actually such a fun game, and it's one that I go to it criminally too little. Like for how good it actually is, and that the more I thought about it, that's why I ended up including it on the list. And at first it was like, I think it was like 49 or 50, and then as I started to compare it to other games, I'm like, well, no, actually, you know what? I think I like it more than Gizmos, and I like it more than That's Pretty Clever. I just don't play it enough. So I've actually made it a note, and I'm 100% going to start introducing this game more often, because I know a lot of people now that I think about it that I've started to introduce games to that would love this game, even just for the way it looks on the table. So.
All right, and my number 42 best game of all time here is Patchwork.
Oh, wow.
So this is...
I'm just going to say right now, we filmed this one entry, and my audio thing here screwed up, so we had to refilm this one. So we made a joke about how are you going to act surprised again my pick, because you already know what it is now.
So this is Patchwork, my number 42 game. It is a polyomino game for only 2 players. Dylan was surprised before because he thought it'd be higher on my list. Basically, we've both been playing it wrong for years. I only discovered this the other day when playing on Board Game Arena. Been playing by the rules as written in the rule book, and there's a thread on Board Game Geek. Go check it out. It's the highest rated rules thread that talks about this sort of lack of clarity in this one section of the rulebook, where it says that if you land on or pass a space with a button on it, you get a payout of buttons. So we had been playing where you basically get these double payouts where you get buttons for how many are on your quilt twice, where you're actually only supposed to get it once. So it completely changed the dynamic of the game. I played this on Board Game Arena and realized that as I was playing, because I wasn't getting the second payout, I went and looked at this. So we were both talking about how it always felt kind of wrong to us when we were playing that we'd get the double payout, but we checked the rules and it was like, no, that's how it's written in there.
It just felt off, but the rules kept confirming that it was correct.
Yeah, and the issue that prevented this from being higher on my list because of that, for all the plays I've had, is because it felt like whoever got the most double payouts would win almost every time, and sometimes that depended on what tiles you can actually draw in front of you and that sort of thing. So I could see this maybe moving higher up the list for me in the future, but I've played it probably like 25 or 30 times, and basically almost every single time I've played it wrong by rules that make the game less good. So it's almost unfairly at number 42, but that's where it sits for now.
Yeah, so I played it correctly since then, now that I've heard about this, and when I played it correctly, I got -5 points as my final score, which reminded me a lot of how the scores in like Lost Cities can be super low, and it really cut through the scores. So yeah, I'm really excited to go back, because I like it a lot, and it's on my list somewhere, even based on having played the rules wrong. So now having played them correctly and realizing how much tighter the game is, and each move, how much it matters, I'm really excited to go back and play a bunch more.
I have to feel bad for the guy who in that forum thread on BGG was like, I am extremely upset. I've played this game over 100 times, and I just found this out. I was like, oh, poor guy, 100 plus plays. Like, he probably doesn't even want to play it by the real rules now. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So anyways, that's number 42, Patchwork.
Nice. Okay, the last one on my list today is number 41, and that is another newer game. I think it's the second biggest game in my collection, and that is Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's funny, because it's testament to how good this game is that I've only played it at 2 players, and it's actually still on this list. Because the pandemic, we just haven't been able to get it to the table with 3 or 4. But I've absolutely loved it. It made my list of top 5 games from 2020. I think it was like 3rd or something like that, or 2nd. Maybe it was 1st.
I think it was 2nd.
2nd. Yeah, right. My seed was 1st. Yeah. Spoiler if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, it's just such a gorgeous game on the table. Like, I love setting this game up, and it takes a while to set up for some components, but it's just so enjoyable to actually do that process. I love all the gameplay elements that are in there. I love games that utilize. I'm a big fan. I've realized I'm a big fan of dice in games, but I don't like when it's just pure randomness. So I love when there's the element of, yes, dice are involved, but there's ways to manipulate them or strategically build them up in a way that makes them more reliable or less luck-based. I love that, and Tidal Blades has a lot of that, where you're upgrading dice, you're getting better ones that are more reliable. They can still come back to bite you, where you say, how did I roll the one thing I didn't want to roll? But generally you start to have more success based on how you built them. I love all the asymmetrical abilities on the characters. I love that I can come and play each of the four characters differently and have a different experience. But if I even play them multiple times, it'll feel different because you might draw into different ability cards that game and want to build your character out a different way. Right. So much variety, so much fun to play, so much fun to use the components. It's a game I cannot wait to. As soon as I have a group of 4 players that we're like, okay, we're not here to play Gloomhaven, we're not here to play something we're reviewing, we're just going to play some games. The first one I'm going to throw down is going to be Tidal Blades, because I absolutely think people are going to love it and really it's going to be one people are going to play and say, oh, let's come back to that one for sure. So yeah, that's Tidal Blades. It squeaks onto this video, or just barely into this video, not the next one. And I think that after I play 3 and 4 players, I think it could probably slide up higher in next year's video.
Cool. I have not played it yet, but one I'm looking forward to playing.
Yeah.
All right, and my last one for this video, coming in at number 41, is a game I've had so much fun with. It could go higher on the list. It could fall off the list potentially, and it is one of the only party games on my list. That is Monstrosity. So honestly, I recently did my top 10 games of 2020 list, and these lists in general are hard to put together. I would already go back and change things. I needed one game on that list that was a party game. I put Wavelength, and now I almost regret it because I've overall had more fun with Monstrosity. I haven't played many of these like kind of drawing games, but of the ones I have played, it's my favorite. The long and short of it is someone picks up a monster card from a deck, has 20 seconds to memorize what it is, they put it face down, and then they have 2 minutes to describe it while everyone else are the sketch artists and they all have to draw it, and then you compare drawings and stuff. It's absolutely hilarious. I think it's the most I've ever laughed playing any game, but the reason why it's not higher is that first off, it has like kind of a limited replay value in the sense that once you've seen a certain number of the monsters, or if you're playing with a monster that you've seen but other people haven't seen, there can be a bit of an imbalance. The scoring system is like okay, but it's not that really like important to the game kind of thing. And I played it with one group once where it didn't quite hit the same high as with other groups, so I think you have to have the right group for it, go in with the right mentality. You have to be kind of like, if people are just like kind of tired and are just sitting there kind of like lazily describing what it is, you're not going to really get into it. Right. But with the right group and the right kind of setting and everything, it's an amazing game. No barriers in terms of playing it with like kids and adults all together. It's an awesome game, lots of fun, and one I highly recommend everyone check out.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal pick, and you might be surprised to find out that it's actually on my list. And
I'm not surprised.
But it's going to be. It's funny because it's going to be higher than yours, but you own the game and you've played it more than me. So It's a testament to how good this game is. That it's in a short time frame landed with me so much that I am 100% going to buy my own copy. And nice. It either is currently or just was on Kickstarter with the upgrade.
Shut Up and Sit Down. They had the different. Yeah, and there's a couple expansions already. I have the creatures one, the cute creatures, there's a robot one.
I basically want to get like the base game and all the expansions because I just want to have tons of longevity with it. I'll talk about it more when it comes up. But yeah,
sounds great. Yeah, it's an awesome game.
Yeah.
So that's it for our 50 to 41 picks. We're gonna actually just start filming the next couple videos right away. They'll be released every other day from now until December 30th when our final video will come out. Yep. We've got plenty of double spice chai coursing through our veins, which I brought over as my drink of choice. So I think we're ready to go for a couple more videos. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel. Stick around for the other videos on our top 50. Otherwise, anything else you want to add before we close things out?
That is it.
All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.